Hello and welcome to Behind the Stars. My name is Lauren Hansen.
And I'm Evan Burke. And on this podcast, we try to teach you astrology using the birth chart of the most famous person of the moment.
Mm-hmm. And this week, it seems to be Margot Robbie.
I mean, I would say so. Come on, Barbie, let's go party.
Let's go party. Yeah.
So Margot Robbie was born on July 2nd, 1990 at 7:45 a.m. in Dalby, Australia.
Remember when I first learned she was from Australia? I was so surprised.
Really? Because she's such a good actress.
Just because she's such a good actress. Yeah.
I mean, she's got the placements for it.
I know. She really does.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk about it. All right. Should we dive into her sun, moon, rising?
Let's do it.
Just get straight to it?
Yep. She's a Cancer.
Mm-hmm. So she's a Cancer sun. She's a Scorpio moon. And she's also Cancer rising.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah.
That's really a lot of water. And this is like, okay, we're really talking two signs here, Cancer and Scorpio, right? So she basically is the combination of the mother, the person of the people, the nurturer, the empathizer, the one who wants everybody to feel good and happy and emotionally cared for all the time.
Yeah.
Paired with a very intense sign.
Well, I mean, you can kind of see just how in her acting, she can really tap into those emotions. But I feel like there was one scene that she did, I think it was in Babylon, where she has this intense crying scene. And then all of a sudden, the director yells cut, and she just wipes off her tears, and she's back to normal.
Back to normal.
And I feel like that's very all water minus Pisces in there.
Yeah, minus Pisces. Because Pisces would be like, no, I need a moment.
Yes. Scorpio can recover like that.
I know.
Wipe the tears off, ready to go on to the next thing.
I will have to mention I'm a moon in Scorpio, and
yes.
I agree with you. And by the way, we have gone over more details of moon in Scorpio on our Beyonce episode.
Yep.
FYI.
Check out Beyonce. It's our most listened episode.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, I guess unless you count Austin Butler. Watch that one too.
Oh, yeah, that one. Don't forget.
Yeah.
But basically, so this is a sign of the mother and the person of the people and the emotion, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Paired with Scorpio, I just want to say, this is like the sign of rebirth, transformation, deep intimacy, your shadows, psychology, power. It's a very powerful, powerful, powerful sign. And it's intense. It's very intense. So anyway, mixing the two of these together is interesting because let's at least mention Cancer is a cardinal sign.
Yep.
Loves to get things started, loves to get things going, can be quite the leader. And then Scorpio is a fixed sign. So really good at keeping things going and continuing to do whatever the rigmarole is that you need to finish the project.
Yeah.
Basically. But so she doesn't have any mutable signs. So she's
not in the big three,
Not in her big three.
Yeah.
She does have her Venus in Gemini.
Yes.
So she has a little bit of mutability in there. But I just want to say she's a fire starter, and she's somebody who will see it through.
Yeah.
For sure. And this makes the moon her chart ruler as well, as she is a rising Cancer.
Which honestly, as an actor, having the moon as your chart ruler, being able to shift between emotions so quickly and easily, I feel like that's very helpful.
And we say that because the moon is the luminary that shifts the fastest in the sky, even if you consider all the planets. The
Every
moon,
2.5 days, you're in a new sign. You're in a new feeling, a new house, a new emotion.
Exactly. New project if you're an actor. There you go.
And I feel like because she has the sun and ascendant in the same sign, I personally have the same as well. I feel like you really feel your sun sign, where a lot of people don't necessarily feel their sun sign all the time.
Yeah, if you're watching this and you're like, I'm a Cancer, but I don't always feel like a Cancer.
Yeah.
You might only have the sun in Cancer, but you have Mercury somewhere else, a different rising. Anyway.
Yeah.
She's like a thorough Cancer.
Yeah. And I feel like having the sun and ascendant in the same sign, it's very much like what you see is what you get.
That is exactly what it is.
The ascendant is what the world sees, and the sun is who you are deep down in your core. So people can kind of see who you are authentically pretty easily.
People end up typically really liking people who have the same rising as their sun because the person doesn't seem to change so much. Like exactly what you said.
Unless you're a Gemini.
Unless you're a Gemini, no. Unless you're a Gemini. But that's just the one exception.
Yes.
But anyway, given that the moon is her ruler and her moon is in Scorpio, just in the end, she's not only seen as this Cancerian energy, it's still ruled by Scorpio. So as much as she probably gives off a very mother-esque energy, she also does really give off maybe something a little sexual, a little sultry. She can definitely pull it off. I don't know if you've seen her, but she can pull it off for sure.
What's so funny is that, I mean, Margot Robbie is our age, and I feel like a lot of women who are our age in Hollywood get typecast as a mom now that you're they're in your 30s.
Yeah.
And she doesn't seem to get cast as a mom in anything.
No.
Which, I mean, if she did, she'd probably be like ultimate MILF or something.
Ultimate MILF. I'd like to see that, to be honest.
But what's so funny is that she's so Cancerian, you would think that she'd like give mother.
Right. But as we will discover, she's got a lot going on in her chart, you guys. This is why she's done so much.
Yeah.
And honestly, larger than life is how I would describe her. I mean, given her the certain roles that she's taken on, how much she's done in her career, like she really took off in really 2013. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And she's just been like boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's endless.
And she's still so young.
Yeah. She's like around 30.
Yeah.
And she's accomplished so much. Anyway, so I'm saying larger than life because she has Jupiter, the planet of expansion and positivity, and anything it touches, it will exaggerate and make larger. She has it touching her ascendant point.
Yep.
So she literally walks into a room and is larger than life, right?
Yeah.
People cannot help but notice her. She is also not only like, basically what I'm trying to say is she doesn't only give off Cancerian vibes with a Scorpio twist. She also has these Jupiterian vibes, which is like so generous, so open, so positive, magnetic. And she's Scorpio too. So we got double magnetic for two different reasons. And it's just a really cool when you take Cancer that is so about helping others and or at least creating art. Like that's a way of helping others that can be for Cancers. They're not literally always moms. Sometimes they're just creating things that then make people feel emotionally more stable. But so it's not all that. She's also generous. So like you have mom and generous. So I would only imagine she's a friggin' joy to be around.
Yeah, she probably has baked goods everywhere.
That's probably why she gets hired so much too. She's probably a joy to work with, is what we're guessing here. In an educational way with lots of facts to back us up. But anyway, so optimistic, confident, generous, all of that. She probably not only prioritizes those Cancerian things like self-care and rest, blah, 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 comfort foods, etc. She's a freedom-oriented person. Like she definitely, that Jupiter side of her is like, hey, we got to be larger than life. We got to go through phases. We need to be kind to each other. She probably cares about her beliefs and is on a, feels she's like on a journey and is open to roaming and having her independence and valuing, like I said, freedom. Yeah. Well, which is not a thing for Cancers necessarily. At all.
Well, the independence is kind of like key in the sense that because of the cardinal sign of being a Cancer and like kind of going what you want for emotionally, like that's what she went for, leaving Australia to come to the United States. Like who can do that? Like who can have the courage to leave and go to the complete other side of the country?
World.
And,
the world.
The whole world.
The whole world.
Yeah.
The other side of the world, and then take a gamble on your acting career.
Yeah.
That's just insane. I love it. I love that she did it. So anyway, all Cancerian, but a lot of Jupiterian aspects as well. And the other thing is that what comes with the Ascendant and Jupiter coming together, there's a dark side and a light side to everything.
Of course.
Yeah. So we said exaggerates over the top a lot. Okay, that's Jupiter. Can be very positive, is positive most of the time. Yeah. But this is where she can over-relate to other people. And I say other people because we're talking about a rising sign. But that's really good for an actor.
Totally.
Really good for an actor to be able to over-relate. So I can imagine her sitting down with Tanya when she was going to play I, Tanya. And she could easily just like overly relate to her and embody her. Because on top of it, she's a Cancer and she's got a Scorpio moon. That's all about being able to slither into the emotions of somebody else.
But then the negative side of that, like you have to say, is that does everyone deserve empathy and sympathy when you're a bad person or whatever?
Guarantee she's been taken advantage of.
Yes.
Guaranteed.
There's that, and she's probably had moments where she's like a drama queen. I mean, she is a drama queen because she's an actress and she's one of the best actresses out there. But like, I'm sure there are moments where she gets caught up in her emotions and is going too hard in the emotional side of things, and people just be like, girl, you need to calm down. And then the Scorpio side probably kicks in and she's like,
oh shit, we gotta focus. But I was gonna say, you know what I picture her doing? I think I caught blips of her once like working out for Suicide Squad, and like there were all these clips of her like practicing right before doing the scene and stuff, and she was like having so much fun and she got like carried away. That's kind of what we're talking about too. Like she could just get carried away. It's not even the worst thing if she like runs off with whatever you're trying to show her. She's like, we're like, okay, enough somersaults. Yeah, we get it. You can do it. Like that kind of a thing.
But there's also
definitely.
like there's a reason why she plays such a good Harley Quinn, is because Harley Quinn is insane.
Yeah.
And so she's able to tap into that energy. But like, even when she was filming that movie, like she got so invested in that role and in that group of people that she was filming with, that she got like a tattoo, like a Suicide Squad tattoo. Yeah. With some of the other people. Like,
I love
she was very invested in that role. And I'm sure she gets invested in every single one of her roles. Like, she makes those roles bigger than life because of that Jupiter.
And I'll say, a Scorpio moon doesn't do anything that they're not passionate about. And that is why she's such a powerful actress. Because I guarantee you she's not taking on roles that she feels half-hearted about ever. Like, you have to, And on top of it, you know, it's said there's luck on your side when Jupiter's conjunct the Ascendant. But really, want to know why they say that? Is because somebody with Jupiter conjunct the Ascendant is going to be naturally more optimistic, more open to opportunity, just more positive. So obviously they're going to get more goodies.
Well, and that's the other thing, is that if you're just getting more of everything, then you can pick and choose like the things that you want to take. But the problem is you're also getting more of everything else also. And so you have to realize how to like block out like the negative stuff that you're getting more of probably than anyone else as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, I do know that is true. Yes, that is true.
Life is just happening harder for her.
Yeah, it is.
All of the parts.
And I just wanted to point out other celebrities with the Ascendant and Jupiter together. And that's like, we want to point out that big smiles tend to come with having Jupiter conjunct the Ascendant. And so not always, but almost always. So it's like Kate Hudson, America Ferrera, Christina Ricci, and Katie Couric. And there's a whole other list, but like perfect examples.
They're all very like bright, welcoming people.
Yeah. They got these big ass smiles, man. Do we want to move on to Ascendant Opposite Saturn?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
She's too perfect. We need something to find. We need a flaw.
Yeah. So this is really interesting because Jupiter and Saturn are like, in a way, opposite of each other. As in, Jupiter is very much about positivity and expansion and going longer and bigger and being independent. Saturn is very much about like your limits, your restrictions, the rules you need to follow, like the structure you need to live in. Where, you know, Jupiter's like roaming out in a forest somewhere, you know, on a horse, going far, far, far away.
And Saturn is the horse.
And Saturn is the horse. And it's like, bitch, this is where we're going. But anyway, so the point is that she has her Ascendant conjunct that Jupiter, but it's opposing Saturn.
Yes.
So this tells us quite a bit.
Well, we've been discussing a lot of this off camera, that just trying to unpack all of it, because there is so much.
There is so much.
Because Saturn is rules, it's time, it's aging, it's reality, it's the cold, hard reality.
Time.
And if it's on your descendant, it's
which is where she has it.
Yes, the ascendant is the closest personal thing as yourself, and the descendant is the other. So it's like, how do those things apply to how she interacts with other people and how the world applies to her?
Right. And so what it really tells us is that whenever anybody has Saturn opposite their ascendant, they tend to be pretty critical of themselves, a little controlled, really taking relationships very seriously, because that descendant point that we're talking about that's opposite the ascendant, that starts your 7th house of partnership and others, like we were saying. It's the point of the others, your business partnerships, your friends, like anybody, coworker, anybody you interact with, how you are with others. So anyway, my point is she can be very probably cautious when it comes to who she selects as the others in her life, which is a really good thing in a sense, especially when you have Jupiter and your ascendant together, which makes you want to invite everybody into your world.
Or you just have more to give.
Yeah.
And so if you have more to give and you have a tendency to give a lot, then there are going to be more people who are going to take. And
so this Saturn, as much as we were like, we're leaning into how this is a negative, it's also actually quite a positive, because it's really balancing that over the top Jupiterian side of her. But usually if somebody doesn't have Jupiter there, I mean, it's somebody who is overly cautious, overly critical, can be too rigid, and can take relationships really seriously to the point where they actually think relationships have to be hard. And they don't know how to appreciate things when they're actually easy and beautiful. So where this all stems from, this is my favorite part of astrology, is that like really an astrology chart shows somebody's childhood and at least a rough idea of it. And Saturn represents the father, very much so. And so this shows us with the opposition, and opposition being a hard aspect that creates tension. It's obvious that her dad was in some way absent or left wasn't really there and didn't really
Not supportive.
Just not supportive. And he himself was probably a more controlling, more rigid, tough love type of a person. And in the end, that is why she now is a little cautious, a little critical, wanting to be in control because her dad was not there to do that for her. And there is it's almost like Saturn really is the planet of responsibility at the end of the day. So she feels very responsible within her relationships, which she chooses as projects. That's why she's so cautious. But it all stems from this father stuff where it's like he wasn't there probably to create the walls that she needed and the safety that she needed and to be cautious for her. So she's had to become really responsible on her own. That's where it all comes from. But it makes her really loyal.
Yeah.
And really seriously committed when she does get into relationships. And that is another positive.
It's funny. We
don't see it in Hollywood very often.
No. What's funny is like we were both looking at the chart and not doing too much research yet. And we were like, okay, Saturn in the 7th house tends to signify either getting married at a later time or being
like past 30 kind of a thing.
Right. Or being partnered with someone who's much older than you or whatever happens to
someone
be.
Someone who's an authority or older. Remember, Saturn is time and age, and it's the older authority. It's also the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so we were looking at her husband and we're like, okay, he's actually a little bit younger than her.
By 2 whole weeks.
Yeah. He's a little bit younger than her, and he wasn't in a place of power over her. He was like a third AD on the movie that she was in.
Yeah.
So it's not like he was a superior in any way.
Right.
And it didn't take, I mean, they didn't start dating until after a year of knowing each other, but then they got like married pretty quickly too.
Yeah, they did get once they were together. But
so then we're like, okay, where is that Saturn like coming into play with her partnerships?
Right, because what we're looking for is like, okay, she's going to marry someone when she's past 30, and also he's probably going to be older or an authority, somebody above her, like a director she's worked with or something like that. And we're like, we're not seeing it. But what we do see is that she took her time.
Yes.
And that is very Saturnian. She did not just immediately start dating this guy. I don't know about you guys, but I have never been friends with somebody and then dated somebody. I'm happy. Yeah, she accomplished that because she decided to take her fucking time.
But she also has Saturn.
And she met him at work.
Yeah.
And she met him at work, which is a Saturnian thing for sure.
And she has Saturn in Capricorn, so it's in its domicile. So it's not going to have as negative effects as it probably would if, say, you have
Saturn in Pisces.
Yeah.
Some places not happy.
So she probably was able to take all the positive sides of Saturn in Capricorn and apply it to her partnerships.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, she's doing better than a lot of us.
And we found a quote earlier where basically she said, I love being married. Marriage is super fun. I love being this being responsible for being a good wife. It makes me want to be a better person. That's another big part of the AC opposite Saturn. Yeah. You actually, like I said, you are more responsible, and it might stem from an insecurity from like dad not being there. But in the end, it is a part of her, and she ends up enjoying responsibility and structure, knowing where she stands. So I'm sure she really does enjoy being married.
Yeah. I would love to know her like values within the marriage too, because I would assume that she's very like traditional, because Saturn is very traditional.
And she's a Cancer, which is also very traditional. Rising Cancer, Mercury in Cancer. She's got a lot of Capricorn and Cancer. These are the 2 signs that are opposite, and they are both traditional.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she is, but we'll get to another aspect to where I think there's a little bit of quirkiness for sure. Should we keep going on Saturn and talk about that square? Do you have more to say?
Well, so Saturn has a square with Mars, and with it being at opposition of her sun, having that opposition creates a T-square. Yeah,
so she has, like we were saying, she's a rising Cancer and she's a sun in Cancer, right? So basically that point where she has a rising, she has her sun, they're somewhat close together. That sun is opposing Saturn, and then it's squaring Mars, which is in Aries. So it's all coming together like this. It's forming a T-square.
Yeah, it makes like a triangle with half the chart.
Yeah. Anyway, look it up. So anyway, basically Mars is in Aries and we have Saturn in Capricorn. What's interesting about this is, first of all, they're both in their home signs.
Yep.
So Saturn's at home in Capricorn or domicile, like he was saying. Mars is at home or in domicile in Aries. So these are two very powerful places, and they're having friction with each other.
Yeah.
Which you can, if you just look that up on its own, you'd be like, this is bad. But it's not. Friction actually it supports creation and it makes somebody move and like do things. And in this case, when Mars and Saturn are square to each other, especially in their home signs, that creates somebody who has incredible ambition, great work ethic, is probably an energizer bunny of sorts, not in an erratic Uranian way, more in a like, I don't stop till my goal is accomplished kind of a way.
Good structure in their life that allows them to really flourish in that type of their aspects of their life, especially considering Mars is in the 10th in the house of like career. So she's definitely able to put her action into her work. Like if she ever has like anything that's probably off balance between others and herself, she could probably focus on work and it'll bring that balance where things don't exist because of that T square.
Yep. I agree very much so. So it's interesting because with the T square, we're going to bring it back to the dad. What the T square basically shows us is because Mars is your like life force drive and your individuality paired with the sun, but it is your individuality and what you instinctually want to do and get going and get started. If that's squaring Saturn, which represents the father, it shows like, okay, Papa probably didn't support whatever she was very passionate about doing. I would guess she mentioned she wanted to act to him and he laughed, for example.
And she left.
And she said, she said, I'm outie, thank you very much, and I'm going to go be super famous without you. Anyway, but that square is motivating. It shows that her dad probably like just didn't support it. It thwarted her, and she's probably one of those people who's like partially working so hard to prove that she can do it against her dad. Maybe it's deeply subconscious and she doesn't actually think of this stuff very often. Or it's something she talks about all the time in therapy. We don't know.
I don't know.
We don't know. But that's kind of the idea. That relentless work ethic, that patience, that ambition, all of that comes from almost like I'm going to prove that what I'm passionate about want to do, I'm going to succeed at that. And I'm going to prove Papa wrong.
I do wonder with like all of her placements if acting is her therapy. I mean,
I think it is. I think it's a big part of it.
I think at her level of fame and any actor's level of fame, it's hard to find somebody who doesn't go to therapy. But I'm assuming that she lets a lot of stuff out in her acting.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like we can see it. I think that's why she's so great.
Yeah.
And then lastly about this, I just wanted to mention that because Mars is your sexuality also, it's your sexual energy. And if it's squaring Saturn, a very cold, strict planet, she likely takes sex very seriously. She likely is not the type of person who feels comfortable like one night stands and all of that. It's more like, if we're going to have sex, we need to be committed to each other. You know what I mean? So, and that means that it's quite literally also a sexual block. Because I'm sure there are times where she probably should have just slept with somebody even though they weren't going to be her boyfriend, and it would have been a liberating experience. It's that kind of an idea. But like, it's like, no, I need both of these to be together for me to be comfortable. And that's okay too. But listen, my personal belief is still like, come on, let your free fly a little bit. But anyway,
I also think that because Mars is so high in her chart, it is really close to her MC, the highest point, that she probably gives off.
Oh, Mars? You mean Mars?
Mars, yes. That it gives off a sexual energy that she maybe doesn't subscribe to necessarily.
That too.
That people perceive her as being more sexual than she probably is, and she probably be having that square to the sun, the self, and Saturn and the others. She probably has a struggle with how people sexualize her when it's not on her terms.
She's somebody who's done such it's so funny because she's so friggin' beautiful and she's so photogenic and she looks great and all these things, but she has kept an innocence about her. Like,
I mean, aside from the Wolf of Wall Street,
but like for some reason, I still would never like typecast her as like a raunchy, sultry actress. No. Like, she can embody it, but she does a really good job of slinking right out of it.
Yes.
Too. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Well, and even look at her playing Barbie, who is probably one of the most sexualized toys that's ever existed.
Yeah.
And yet still, she has that perfect balance of like innocence, but sex, but not overt sex.
It's just really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking like everybody had a Barbie in their home. She's the Cancer. Anyway.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to the sun opposite Uranus and Neptune?
Oof. Yes.
I mean, she's got so much happening, you guys.
I would look at this and not knowing who I was talking to, my immediate thought would be like, this poor person.
Yeah, it's really intense to have your sun opposite Uranus or your sun opposite Neptune, and to have both is quite a lot. That is quite a lot. And there are a lot of people who are born around like kind of 1990-ish that will have that because Saturn and Neptune were so close together at that time. Or in Saturn and Uranus. Actually, all three of them were together. So there's a lot of really crazy shit around this 1990 time, just FYI, when it comes to oppositions with these three planets because they were all so close. But anyway, let's do Uranus first.
Yeah.
So with the sun opposite Uranus, I didn't mention with the Mars square Saturn, but Mars square Saturn also gives you somewhat of an anti-authority kind of vibe because Saturn is the authority. Mars is your individual, what you want to do. There's tension there. So she's probably not super into at least like old school authority, like the old way of doing things. She probably only likes directors who think much more futuristically and interestingly. Anyway, so with this sun opposite Uranus on top of that square, she's truly anti-authority, like really anti-authority.
Yeah.
And there's this urge to rebel. There's a part of her that's always seeking revelation because Uranus is the planet of, we're going to change this shit. It's time for the future. It's time to get rid of all the old leaders and put in totally new, innovative systems that are technologically advanced and just futuristic in any way. Yeah. And it is also representative of the higher self. It really is, right? So, point is, she not only has this urge to rebel, she probably is somebody who is very prone to revelations and all about having revelations and wanting to move forward into the future. And on top of it, I want to talk about how it's a generational planet. So Uranus is very much about its time. And it's really interesting because when people have their sun opposite Uranus, they tend to be the type of people that don't relate to their own generation very much. Like they're opposite. They're opposite of it. And so they're just like, and they can end up being much more interested in like you've ever met somebody who was also born in 1992, but they're like super into listening to Frank Sinatra, like shit like that. Like whatever her time period's music, fashion, whatever it is, she's likely more into some old shit or way more futuristic stuff if she hears about it ahead of time, which she really can because she's a friggin' celebrity, so she really knows what's coming up. But anyway, she's about changing traditions on top of being so traditional, being a Cancer with all that Capricorn energy. But she's Uranian. Yeah. So she might be traditional, but I guarantee you, she's making her own traditions in addition to some old ones that she loves. Yeah. And she probably doesn't relate much to her generation. And that's, I think we were discussing earlier, is part of why she does so many films that are about different times.
Yeah. I have a good friend who has the same placement. She has sun opposite Uranus, and she's very much into social justice. She's very much into
humanitarianism.
Like, anti-authority, like not just like doing the status quo and moving about it. She also became like a very young mother, but she's like a cool mom and and so I think it's very much like challenging the preconceived notions of like who you are supposed to be in this world. And so Margot Robbie jumped into the industry at such a young age, but she jumped in like being this authority figure already somehow. Like her first big movie was Wolf of Wall Street.
I mean,
and then she became one of the biggest people out of nowhere. Uranus, hello.
Yeah.
Fast actions.
So yeah, that's the other thing. So Uranus represents shock, electricity, the future out of nowhere, like aha moments, realizations, like things just coming together. And I think with this Jupiterian luck that she has, paired with this like Uranian energy being like, listen, Margot Robbie, you're a fucking lightning bolt.
Yeah.
Like she was going to get discovered early. And it's so funny too, because she's simultaneously so mature for her age with that rising opposite of Saturn. So in addition, she's, I don't think it was like, she wasn't like this one-stop shop, like, oh my gosh, this girl has entered the scene. And then she like lightning then left.
Right.
Because she has that Saturn energy on top of it. She used that to keep going and to build her career over time like a motherfucker. So it's very impressive, honestly. But yeah, so she might be into structure, but she's also not into structure. She's definitely has some loves to have an erratic, surprising side to her as well.
I'm assuming she has like, especially within her marriage, because she's also, they've been married for quite some time. They don't have any kids that we know of, but but I can imagine she's very much like traditional, but like anti-tradition at the same time, where she probably has like built like her relationship and the life that she wants that includes the tradition that like resonates with her but doesn't feel attached to the other stuff, where she's able to like kind of go forward and be like, this is what a husband and wife look like in the future.
Exactly. And I love that. And I'm sure also partially because she's so close to her mom, I'm sure the traditions that she does hold on to are probably just like some specific ones that her mom instilled.
Yeah.
And that's probably about it. And then she's all about the future. And I love it.
Yeah.
Sun opposite Neptune.
Oof.
On top of it. Want to describe what Neptune is? Isn't it a fun one?
I mean, it can be, but usually it's, I mean, in my experience, it's not been.
Yeah.
It's a lot of confusion.
We've had it square our ascendant for a while, okay?
Yes.
We're a little touchy with Neptune.
It's confusion, it's mystery, but not in a fun mystery way.
In a foggy, confusing, delusionally.
It's like the synapses not like clicking. There's stuff like...
It's blurry.
Yeah.
It's blurry. We don't know what's happening.
It's like beer goggles on everything.
Beer goggles on everything. But that's why it also represents everything you can't really see. That is spiritual and magical.
Fantasy.
And it's vibes. It's frequencies.
Vibes.
It's... I know. I'm really sick of that word.
I know, but it does.
It hits. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah. So basically, it's a really murky, confusing planet, and it is quite literally. This one is really the opposite of Saturn because Neptune is non-reality and Saturn is reality.
Yep.
It's earthy. It's reality. It's what's here. It's the facts. Neptune is like whatever we feel, kumbaya.
Yeah.
You know the scary hippie kind of stuff, like where it's like, oh God, you're going off into like totally
cult range.
That's where Neptune can get very dark.
Yeah. If you really want to see like the darker side of Neptune, you can find connections to really like extremist religions, really like drinking the Kool-Aid, like real scary stuff.
Real scary stuff. So, point is, with her sun opposite Neptune, we're double, tripling down to problems with the papa also. Because usually, well, it does not necessarily mean the dad. It could be the mom too. But familial, like, absence really happens. But the sun is also representative very much of the father. In some cases, it can end up meaning the mom if it's like a single mom house where the woman is both parents. But the point is, the sun opposite Neptune also means father absent on drugs or literally left
or missing
disappeared, was gone, maybe he passed away, like whatever. Father not there. And we have definitely looked this up. He was not there. She does not even talk to this man, by the way.
What's funny is I look at it and sometimes like Neptune making hard aspects to luminaries, I tend to think of like substance abuse problems or reliance on substances, but she has such a structure to her opposition as well that like I would bet that she like indulges in psychedelics in like a fun way,
totally,
and not like a crutch or not like a self-prescribing medication type thing where she probably like enhances how she sees the world through psychedelics and things like that.
I agree, and I think part of why she's able to do that, though, I picture her like out in a field taking a few shrooms with a couple girlfriends.
Yeah.
Is because her creative side is so well fed.
Yeah.
Now, if Margot Robbie was slightly less talented and never made it on the big screen,
right,
she might be a fucking drug addict.
If she worked at the mall instead of like on the big screen,
she'd be losing her damn mind and maybe taking like 5 tabs of acid to get off this planet.
She doesn't have to indulge in like mind-altering substances because she's
constantly
altering her mind for like
roles.
Work.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's why she's so good at it too.
And that's why I always tell clients who have heavy Neptune in their charts, they need usually spiritual practice and or creative outlets, because if they don't have it, it's like their imagination has nowhere to go. So it'll create all kinds of fucked up stuff that will depress them. Then they'll do drugs because they don't want to be here anyway.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is that dad wasn't there. Therefore, she was able to develop quite an imagination because there wasn't anybody there telling her what to fucking do.
I bet you she had like the coolest imaginary friend as a kid.
Exactly. And on top of it, people with their sun opposite Neptune are usually very compassionate, sometimes overly. Like I said, we already said she's probably taken advantage of with the Jupiter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doubling down on that. I'm sure she's been taken advantage of again.
I also think that if she really wanted to, she could like start her own cult. Like she could be like a prophet.
Oh,
especially with her look. And
with Jupiter and with Neptune
how
and
charming
with Saturn
she is.
And with Uranus. I mean, she has literally all of these major outer planets just feeding into her. I mean, she definitely has a lot of power on her own. and having her moon in Scorpio on top of it. Anyway, but the idea is, like we said, dad's not there, so then she can expand her imagination because there's no one there telling her to limit it, and she has a lot of compassion because she doesn't feel like she had dad there, so she feels for other people who also, which is many people, who didn't have the love and support that they needed growing up. I would imagine she ends up being one of the most philanthropic
I could see
actresses out there, especially as she gets older. And I know she paid for her, like, you know, she did the classic thing where she paid for her mom's house. And the first thing she did when she made her big first check was pay for her, you know, all of her family that she loves, for like everything for them. Like, very Sun opposite Neptune. Very Sun opposite Neptune. But I'm sure she has to work through moments where reality blurs with fantasy. And again, she's in the right career.
Yeah.
Because I bet you her life is actually pretty fine because she can feed it.
And I'm sure her husband is like kind of an anchor for her too. Like anchor her in reality to a sense where like she probably steps off set. And that might have been like something she probably felt connected with him on, is probably on a set. Like when the director yells cut, he was probably there to just be like a very anchoring person to reality.
Solid.
Yeah.
Did we look up his chart? Do you remember what sign he is? All right. Whatever. You guys can look it up and then determine. I bet you there's some earth in there because she needs that stability. And lastly, I just wanted to say, like, all of her roles have been so Neptunian and or Uranian, and it's like all of them of the time or in fantasy. They're very specific roles.
Yeah.
You were saying like she really plays real people.
She plays a lot of real people, but she also plays them in mediums that are very heightened reality.
Exactly.
Like you look at like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where she played Sharon Tate, but it was like a revisionist version where she was like this doe-eyed Sharon Tate who ended up not getting murdered. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. You can see the movie already.
Yeah. Or in Bombshell, where every single person in the movie was playing a real person, but she was like the only made-up person in the movie, but seamlessly fit in with all these people as well. Right.
But Bombshell is of that time.
Yeah. Tanya Harding, like she was like a heightened version of her. Yeah. Barbie, come on.
Barbie. I mean, it's all
everyone knows
Neptunian,
Barbie.
You know what I mean? And Jupiterian. I mean, it's just they're big, again, larger than life roles where fantasy is very much involved, and for the most part, they have a lot to do with a time period. Yeah. You know what I mean? Uranus is what we're talking about.
But
just get a lot.
Yeah.
Man.
Speaking of Barbie coming out, should we look at the transits a little bit?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Well, not from the very beginning,
the past
but like
or the now.
Let's go to the past.
Let's go to the past. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's certain things that I saw, like Wolf of Wall Street. She had Pluto opposite her sun. Which, if the sun is your identity and how you are at your core, Wolf of Wall Street really like launched her into everyone's household. Like people knew who Margot Robbie was after that movie.
Pluto creates, and keep in mind, real quick, not everybody goes through a Pluto opposite their sun transit. Pluto takes forever, 248 years to get through the entire zodiac. Yeah. We don't all get to have Pluto come in opposition to our sun. Lucky me, I will, by the way, with Pluto going into Aquarius. Anyway, it's an intense time, too. It can be a very powerful time, obviously. Maybe this story is going to make me feel better about when that happens to me. Yeah. But it's a really intense, like you die. Like who you were dies. Yeah. It's a complete rebirth. And in her case, guess what? An unknown actress died and a famous one
into the
was
fucking
born.
biggest person in Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah.
And on top of it, with Wolf of Wall Street, the South Node was conjunct her midheaven, which is her point of career. So when the South Node crosses your midheaven, it's a very karmic time for whatever point it hits. So when it crosses the midheaven, your point of purpose, career, and everything, it's a very defining time for your career and all of that. So obviously it was.
She's also had like a lot of stuff with with her Mars, like the ruler of her 10th house of her career.
Oh yeah.
So like Pluto was square her Mars, and when she got cast in Barbie, which was like a lot of, because somebody else was originally cast in it. Amy Schumer was cast in it, and then all of a sudden there was like this big shift. And she was cast as Barbie. And
I bet you there was some tension present when they did the shift as it was squaring her Mars, but it created her to be the role. Yeah. So that's really cool.
And then Uranus was conjunct her Mars when she did Suicide Squad, which I think like Harley Quinn has to be one of her other biggest roles, like her most recognizable role.
And Uranus and Mars together quite literally can equal suicide.
Yeah.
And because Uranus creates accidents, Mars is violence. So I'm just like, oh, Suicide Squad. Perfect. And it's so crazy. Uranus is the planet of crazy and erratic
Yeah.
and nuts, and no one understands you except for people in the future. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on real quick the Wolf of Wall Street time. South Node was crossing her midheaven. Jupiter was even conjunct her Jupiter. You should know where your Jupiter is, and whenever Jupiter returns there, very lucky time. And so it's a big growth opportunity, lots of natural confidence. I think that helped her because I'm sure she went on the red carpet and felt, even though it was new to her, ready for it. I just wanted to touch on that. Wolf of Wall Street. Do you have? What about when she got married?
This is one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. Okay, you take it.
So not when she got married, but
when
she
him.
met her husband, she had Neptune trine her moon. So no.
What? Yeah. What?
Yes, Neptune trine her moon. So emotionally, where she wasn't really available and ready for a relationship in that period of time, but she became friends with him. And after that transit was over, she became open to dating him, and now she's married to him. So Neptune, because it can distort things or
Confuse
like blur
you.
things, so she could have easily became infatuated with him at the wrong time, or somebody else, or she could have been completely oblivious to him and lost him. But because
that's typically what happens when Neptune touches your moon, whether it's a trine, a square, a sextile, it doesn't matter. There's confusion and there's blur and there's deception going on. Yeah. Basically.
And I think that because her sun is so close to Neptune and their opposition, that she's just so used to operating with Neptune
Energy.
Personally affecting her, that when that trine was happening, she probably
could have confused her.
And instead of probably being reactive to a trine with Neptune, she probably was just like, let's stay settled. Let's just stay where we are.
Yeah.
Let this transit pass.
Subconsciously.
Let's harness it in our art, but let's keep pushing. And then she found her husband.
But it's like, I'd imagine if Neptune is trining her moon when she's meeting this guy, she's very in tune with her emotions and how she wants to be cared for. So she was probably there recognizing like, oh, this guy's really good at caring for me. Oh, okay. But I can feel this Neptunian energy, and I know it can be a little weird. So I'm going to take my time with this. I'm going to tap into my Saturn opposition instead. And look at how that turned out. But yeah, not all of us handle a Neptune transit very well. And this is where it's good if you have heavy Neptune, because when a Neptune transit comes, it doesn't confuse you or mess up your world nearly as much as it messes up other people who, if they don't have that in their chart. You know what I'm saying?
I also had to wonder in that period of time with Sun, Moon, and transiting Neptune, all kind of making a grand trine. She must have been tapped into some psychic energy at that point in time.
Oh, yeah. I would not be surprised if we found out that she's a really spiritual person.
I don't know. Maybe it could be spiritual, but I also think she's probably just really intuitive. She probably she probably is able to operate through life of just she's just probably receiving signals that she's unaware of. That she's
I think she could follow her gut really easily is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And then when she actually married him, the true north node was going through her second house, which is good because that's the point of higher path destiny in your house of stable, dependable partnership, healthy relationship. You build together. It's a good spot. It's good to have the true north node in your second house when you get married. But also she had Uranus aligning with her Mars. And so what I find interesting, and then you said this is when she did Suicide Squad too, right?
Yep.
So I would imagine, what I love about this is, you know how we said that she has Mars square Saturn in her chart, giving her kind of sexual blocks and maybe being a little too rigid about sex and not really free.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. The fact that they got married on a day where Uranus and her point of Mars, sexual energy, were together, that indicates to me, good. This is a marriage where she can have sexual freedom.
Uranus is liberated from
liberation. Uranus is liberation, freedom, new heights, doing things that you wouldn't expect.
Broke down her barriers.
So I would imagine this marriage is probably really good for at least helping her with that part of her chart and where she needs to kind of loosen up and have some more fun. I love that. I love that for her. And then the next thing I have is the award year for her. It was 2018. 2018, she won an Oscar, a Golden Globe. This is the beginning of her just winning a million things. And this was for I, Tanya and something else. I can't remember. But the point is that at this point, when she's winning these awards, she's kind of at the tail end of her Saturn return, which I imagine she handled pretty well. And she has Jupiter had just passed her moon.
While and Uranus was opposite that as well.
Right. And this was while she was probably filming the films that she was going to win awards for when she had Jupiter, this planet of luck and opportunity, passing over her moon, which is the point of like emotional fulfillment.
Yeah.
So I guarantee you she was having a good time filming these movies. She felt so emotionally connected to them. These were such lucky roles for her. And obviously they were. She won all these awards for them. And on top of it, the North Node was in Leo and the South Node was in Aquarius. And that falls in her, that's again, the true North Node in her second house and the South Node in her eighth, because it's the same time period as her getting married. My point is that she knew her worth at this time better than any other time. So she was probably organizing her contracts really well. And that probably helped her like continue on, because I'm sure that some people don't do their contracts well and then they're like, what the fuck? And they probably lose love for the acting.
Well, I think also because Tanya was like, she funded that movie herself.
What?
Yeah. Like it was her passion project. She produced it.
I
She
had
did
no
all of
idea.
this. Yeah.
Well, then, again, true North Node in your second house, power behind your money
Yeah.
too.
So
Power might not be the right word, but like destined to be very connected to your money is going to have a big effect on how you move forward.
yeah.
In a lot of ways at that time.
I'm really curious to see how
And it's
like
a good sign.
Uranus finishing its like transit through her 11th house is really going to affect like how the world sees her.
I know, because the 11th house is a really good place to have anything when you're trying to connect with the entire collective.
Yeah.
That's what the 11th house is all about. It's the groups you're a part of. It's the collective. It's all of this.
And it's the place of humanitarian work too. Like I wouldn't be surprised if she launches like a huge charity coming up soon.
I wouldn't
Like
be surprised either.
I bet you she's found like her cause, and she's probably gonna work towards like empowering people through this.
Oh, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely happening. I mean, I'm sold. At least. Oh, and then on top of it, those nodes that were in 2018 when she won all the awards, and when she also, it was the tail end of also the nodes being there when she got married. Anyway, those nodes were also making a square to her midheaven. It was causing friction with her midheaven. And I just want to make the point that it's like, just because the nodes are maybe like squaring your midheaven or your ascendant or any of these points, don't get scared, because this was one of the most amazing years for her. Squares, again, they cause friction, but they force you to get uncomfortable and then change things because you are uncomfortable. Choose the right role. Choose the thing that's better for your life a lot of the time. Anyway, that's...
I'm also just thinking that
What?
I feel like, if I'm calculating in my brain correctly, I feel like Jupiter is going to be crossing her midheaven around Oscar season next year.
Let's see. Oh, because it's going to be in Taurus. Doesn't Jupiter go into Taurus this year, but then it goes back?
I think so. Yeah, it goes into Taurus, I think dips back a little bit, and then back into Taurus. So I think
it will be there next year.
I'm thinking
award
around
season.
like March of next year, maybe?
We're going to look.
Yeah. We'll see.
Then we'll figure it out.
If not, then maybe she'll win a People's Choice. I don't know.
People's Choice Award. No, but I agree that Jupiter being in Taurus is going to be so good for her career. Yeah, that's going to be really cool. And then I just looked into kind of what's going on now. Speaking of her Taurus midheaven, we have the True North Node in Taurus crossing her midheaven. It crossed in January, kind of when all this real hype for Barbie.
This girl's getting all the luck.
She's getting so much. Yeah, and they're still conjunct now. Simultaneously, that means the South Node is opposite Taurus and Scorpio, crossing her IC at the bottom of her chart, and also right now approaching her moon, which can be actually a very depressing time as somebody who's already had the South Node cross their Scorpio moon, my moon is all the way at 18, so it's already happened. But it is a very... Oh my God, such a huge release and an amazing time right after the South Node releases your moon. And this only happens every 18 years, by the way. And so it's so interesting because the South Node is basically going to dip out of Scorpio, release her moon that's at 1 degree of Scorpio, and literally a few days later is the release date for Barbie. And I'm like, look at that.
Doesn't she have an eclipse coming up on her MC also?
Is it at 9 degrees of Taurus?
I don't know if it's the exact, but...
I mean, but yeah, there's a Taurus eclipse.
Yeah.
This is a big time for her. This is a very big time for her.
Keep watching Margot Robbie.
For sure. And basically this first half of this year, given this like the True North Node being in Taurus and the South Node being in Scorpio and that kind of finishing out by June, this whole first half of this year is very big for Margot Robbie because she has her midheaven in Taurus. She has her moon in Scorpio and her IC in Scorpio. Huge public rebirth. And I think that this Barbie role is probably going to be really different from anything she's ever done, is what
Yeah.
I'm guessing. And maybe this will be leading to her doing other more unusual roles. Like nobody really even
knows what this
understands what it's
movie's gonna
about.
be. Yeah.
You know, and so this supports the whole, like, I think it's going to be real interesting.
I think it's gonna be very Neptunian. It's gonna be weird.
Yeah, it's gonna be
because
really weird.
You can definitely see she's in like Barbie land, and then she comes into like the real world. It's gonna be strange.
It's going to be very strange.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
excited.
excited, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. And on top of it, that was pretty much it. I did want to point out that she's had that Neptune trine to her ascendant since 2019. I know we talked about Neptune being trine to her moon when she met her man.
Mm-hmm.
She also she's had Neptune trine her ascendant that's in Cancer since spring of 2019, and it goes all the way until spring of next year.
I think that period of time since like 2019, she's kind of been under the radar. Like aside from like
It
the
makes
news,
you want to be more reclusive.
Yeah. And I'm sure she's been working on a lot of things behind the scenes, but like, to be fair, like after Bombshell, like I didn't hear a whole lot about Margot Robbie until Barbie. Even when Babylon came out, like I feel like people didn't really talk about it that much.
I barely heard it happened.
Yeah.
But I also live under a rock. But I really barely heard it happen. I do live in LA. I
Yeah.
really still barely heard it happen.
Yeah.
Although apparently it was a great movie. But the point is that when Neptune is trining your ascendant, it is a time where you tend to want to go on more of a spiritual quest. It tends to be a very spiritual time. You might find your guru. You might go into therapy, get more in touch with your deep self. You're more concerned with your soul, your spirit, your emotional world, and your imagination, because it's a heightened time of sensitivity. Your imagination's even bigger. So it's really, again, really good for creatives. So people who have creative outlets, they probably do a lot of their best work when Neptune is like hitting their ascendant like this. So I'm interested.
Not me.
No. Yeah, anyway, we've had such a tough time with Neptune.
It's almost done.
It's almost over. We're so close. But anyway, we have a square going on. But yeah, so it's worked in her favor because also, hello 2019, she basically has had this trine with Neptune all of COVID too. So she was like in the mood to be reclusive and the whole world shut down. I mean, when will her luck stop?
I know.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know. We haven't looked at much further in the future, but she should be good for a while.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
I want to meet her.
I know. I think she'd be really fun.
I think she'd be really cool. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay. Well,
I think we did it.
we'll see you guys next time. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias at Behind Stars Pod. And you can follow me at Evan Burke LA.
And you can follow me at Astro Betch, BETCH.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.